Hey guys, now welcome back to the Drive Talk podcast powered by Michelin. We are in a very cool venue today, aren't we, mate?
Absolutely. Really cool visually, and it smells really good.
It smells just the best ever. So we are at a place called the Car Volco, which is owned and run by my mate, Ben. Ben, welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Now, I came here to film about 12, 18 months ago, probably, and I still couldn't find it when we arrived today.
That's how we like it.
Yeah,
Screw.
exactly.
Yeah.
All of these kind of car storage places, they're always, generally, you need to be told where they are. It's not the kind of thing you add on.
We try our best.
Yeah, exactly. So, mate, for everyone, what do you do here, and what's your background?
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah. So I've been involved in cars for kind of as long as I can remember, but always wanted to have my own business looking after clients in my own way. And it just sort of naturally happened over years of working in different areas of the automobile industry, from restoration of sort of classic Aston Martins up to auctioning and sort of sales in London, to then wanting to build a home that I can feel proud of, where I can sell the cars that I love and think are one of the best or some of the best cars available on the market. And make it something that hopefully looks after me financially and is a bit of fun along the way. And I've been quite pleased that since COVID was a turning point for a lot of people, I think, where he was able to sort of take stock and think, well, what is it that I want to do with my life and feel that I can be really proud of. And I decided to quit my job at the time to do this full time. So I found a property, jumped in, thought, well, how hard can this be?
Famous last words.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just start filling it with cars. And it just sort of naturally just grew from there. And it's been a lovely evolution, and I'm very much enjoying it.
We interrupt this podcast to bring you an important announcement. Joe, what are we up to?
We're going to do our first live show, as in with an audience, on Friday the 15th of March at
Bury BMW Heathrow.
Yes, the details of this will be below in the description. It will be a ticketed event because we'll be providing some nibbles and some drinks, but also to control numbers. There's a maximum capacity of 50 people. If you want to come along, make sure you grab your ticket as soon as possible. Should be an awesome evening. I'm really looking forward to it.
But the most important thing is it's only live once. So we will be recording a podcast that day that will go out onto the internet, but the evening is a live podcast that we're not going to record. You can ask us anything. We'll kind of be a bit, off the record. So the only way you're going to get to see it is by clicking the link below, buying your ticket, and we shall see you there on the 15th.
And Tony Lewis will be there. Almost
the legend.
The legend.
That is Tony Lewis.
So hopefully see as many of you there as possible. Now let's jump back to the podcast.
So we'll put Ben's details below. The cars that are surrounding us, some of these are here being stored.
Yeah.
Some are for sale.
Yeah. So the name, it started off as a storage business. The name very much sort of makes that clear. But we then evolved into doing a lot more sales and brokerage, which was really my strong suit and what I've spent the most time doing. And we are surrounded by some lovely bits of kit, modern classics, full-on classics like the CSR behind us. And,
Look at Joe's face.
I can see Joe's eyes lighting up.
I'm sat here for a reason. It's not to look at you, Fed.
No. Is that CSL behind us? Amazing car.
That's a stunning bit of kit, and I know you know that car well.
There's a review of that on my channel.
So we're very lucky with the stuff we have here, and it's just a nice opportunity for us to figure out what we are good at, and I think I like to think that we're okay at selling cars, and it's a storage business with brokerage, and we try to make life as easy as possible owning cars, because we all know from experiences that cars can be a pain in the arse, and we just want to try and mitigate that and limit those issues as much as possible, because we understand it and spend our lives doing it as a business, looking after cars. So we know all too well the faults and the weak points with cars, so we just try to do what we can with the cars we look after to ensure that they are optimally ready at any point in time, so that they're ready to go.
Cool. And it's nice because you reached out and said, do you want to come and do a podcast? And you are almost the perfect location because you're pretty much halfway between us. So we thought we'd come and have a bit of a change of backdrop.
Well, you're welcome anytime.
And
you might regret saying
I know, yeah, exactly. We'll be back. Our title sponsors will be very, very pleased because the coffee table is a racing wheel with Michelin tyre on.
Yeah.
So well done, mate.
An A1 GP wheel, which I found years ago online. So that's quite apt.
That's cool.
Very cool. It saved me having a cart our big tire.
Exactly, yeah.
I just bought a cushion this time.
Yeah, and I'm just about to redo the garage and barns at my house, and I'm now on the hunt for kind of, motorsport memorabilia type stuff to put in there, and I definitely need a wheel and tyre.
Keep an eye on that one, Ben. Make sure it's there when we leave.
Exactly, yeah. Well, I've got a few other bits I can give you or sell you.
So we're going to have a chat about classic cars and stuff today. Before we do that, though, I just want to say, mate, you are looking and sounding much better than last time I saw you.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. I don't want to bang on about my health too much more, but it seems a lot of people are interested, and I really appreciate all the messages I've received. The last 2 weeks, I've just started getting better and better and better. So I've still got the voice. You can probably hear it. My lungs not 100%, but I feel so much better. I mean, I even helped set this up today.
Yeah, that's never happened.
Which hasn't happened in a year.
Never happens.
Normally, I'll find something.
Me and Pat setting stuff up.
So yeah, no, it's great, man. I'll tell you what, when you're feeling that low and not healthy, when you start getting some of your health back, even 80%, it's a nice feeling. Yeah. It really is. So yeah.
And also, since the last time I saw you, you have an awesome new addition to your channel. And I'm not talking about your nano paint technology M3 Touring. I'm talking about Peggy.
Yes.
The internet sensation.
Well, yeah. Well, we picked up our little female black lab 3 weeks ago, and she's been wonderful. I think she's been a big part of making me feel better about stuff and just me being a bit more positive. And but she's been awesome, and she's almost got 4,000 genuine.
That's more than we
Instagram followers in 3 weeks. I mean, dogs, we're in the wrong industry. We're all in the wrong industry.
Yeah, dogs of Instagram. Forward, yeah.
It's unreal. But yeah, she's great. And I'm sure at some point we need to get our dogs on the podcast.
100%. Yeah. Absolutely 100%.
Yeah. So,
that'll be, maybe we'll just kind of wait for it to calm down a bit. Can you imagine?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Attention span of of a child, and that's what she is, I guess.
Definitely more of a visual thing, isn't it? Dogs, looking at them rather than listening to them.
Yeah. That's right. But they are for just your general well-being. I don't think you can beat having a dog. It gets you out of the house, and they give so much love and warmth. I couldn't live without a dog.
Yeah.
But let's talk classic cars.
Yes.
So I guess the question is, maybe I'll pose this to both of you actually. What is a classic car?
Well,
Ben, you start because you're the expert.
Well, expert. I'll try my best. I think it's a really interesting one. A lot of people have different definitions, obviously, of what classic means to them. I think the way I look at what I would consider a classic car, things that you just do not see. I guess you don't see on modern cars in the same way, and the way they approach the cars, and harking back to what cars were all about, which was pure driving pleasure. Nowadays, cars obviously just got so fat and heavy, and just all these mod cons which we think we need, and obviously we just get so used to, they just start adding them onto all the cars. So when you get in something that is just wind up windows, just loud, because you just get there's no sound insulation, it's just a noisy place to be, and you can hear everything that's going on underneath you and in front of you or behind you. It's just something that is a completely unique experience if you've never done that before. So but yeah, in terms of defining what a classic car is, I think a lot of people just use an age bracket and say, a bit like, HMRC and kind of DVLA, they'll just say, well, if it's pre 74 or whatever it is, and then therefore it's considered a historic vehicle, and you could use that largely to say, well, that's about right. But yeah, it's an interesting one, and I don't really have a clear answer as to how you would define that.
Yeah, the bit that really I think when I was growing up, a classic car to me was the kind of car my dad would have driven when he was a kid or when he was younger. MGs, and bear in mind my dad was a pilot in the war, so he was quite old. Now, classic cars are cars that I wanted when I was a young driver. Yeah. So you've got this whole modern classic. Yeah. Bracket as well.
That's a whole other thing, and I think that's something that is really interesting, is sort of how you would define or start to try and define a modern classic. And I've been sort of asked this quite a lot, and I think sort of what is it that classifies a car as being a modern classic, because there are a lot of cars that are now reaching that threshold, and I almost look at it in a few different ways. But I think the first one is sort of you've got it's classic enough that you feel like you're getting in something old and special and interesting, but it's modern enough that you still got some of the creature comforts that you like, and maybe central locking and electric windows, things that you actually do want to have that make your life easier, but you still have the driving experience of something that is really special, and you're not taking anything away from that.
I wonder if you could a modern classic would be anything pre-sat nav. That's probably not a bad cutoff. if it's not got a sat nav screen.
When would that be? Like early 2000s?
Early 2000s, I think.
Yeah.
I think the first car I went in with sat nav was a mate of mine had a 911, and I remember just seeing this sat nav, which if you looked at it nowadays would have been abysmal. But you think, how does that work?
Yeah.
It's amazing. You know?
I remember I had a E46, not M3. I'm so used to saying that, E46 330i or CI, the coupe, and it was quite a late one, 2004. I think we talked about this on the pod before. It had a tape deck, which was just, which even then was like, what's that doing in there? But it also had the business nav, I think, which was the base nav. And back then, that consisted of a screen that was about that big, like, smaller than most phone screens these days, much smaller. And it just came up with
arrows,
orange arrows. Yeah,
I had that in a Freelander.
Did you? Yes. Literally, it's like, what does that even mean? But yeah, they are classic. It has come a long way, isn't it?
And I think I know it's one of these cliche words, the whole analog driving experience, but it is those cars that they don't have traction control systems. They don't. If you go back, you don't have to go back that far. They probably don't have things like ABS brakes. And I know those are all safety systems that keep us safe on the road. But when you're driving a car, especially a performance car that doesn't have that, there's something very pure about it because it's just you.
Yeah,
most of them have 3 pedals in a manual box. Because let's face it, automatics back then weren't great.
Yeah,
unless you're in some really cool like Jag or something, and you're just mooching along a old Rolls Royce or something.
Yeah. One that I've been looking at recently is the E38 BMW. There's something about those that I really love. And if they were ULEZ exempt, it would make it far more easier for me to buy one.
Oh, they not?
But at the minute, they're not. And every now and then you see one pop up, and I always run the place to think, is that ULEZ exempt? And I have seen one recently, which was, I thought I've got to get that, but it was gone.
Oh.
But I think it's really tricky to figure out what that age point is. And I do think maybe you're onto something with the whole sat-nav thing and looking at sort of, I'm now just looking around the share of what we got in here, and I'm actually right behind Joe. There's a Z8 which we've got, which is 2001. And that's kind of, it has a really early kind of infotainment system.
Yep.
But there's something about that is definitely classic, but it sort of feels more like a modern classic to me than a classic car.
Yes. Yeah.
That car, it's funny because when they came out, the Z8 wasn't well received by a lot of people, but it looks like it was designed yesterday.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing. And I think I've heard a lot of stories of people who were trying to sell them back in the day when they were new and really struggling to get them off the forecourt. So there's definitely a point where when they first launched it, people were intrigued and thinking, what are BMW doing? What is this? But trying to hark back to the proper classic 5S7, which is probably one of my all-time favorite cars. And that really is a classic. That requires a lot of driving effort, but rewarding. And that modern thing is just, the Z8 is just a modern equivalent, but harking back to that era and tradition. And I think it's worked quite well. I think it has aged quite well.
Yeah. I think it's beautiful. I remember it's one of very few cars that aren't Astons that made it into James Bond as well, aren't they? Isn't it?
That, and then they did a Z3, the next one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Z3.
There's that was cut in half, the Z8, which was
by the helicopter with the big rotary saw thing hanging below it. Yeah.
But yeah, they're brilliant. And I remember, like you said, when they came out, and there was a point when people couldn't get rid of them because there was a place, I grew up in central London, and I used to ride my bike up near Hampstead Heath, and there was Highgate, what was it called? Hexagon Highgate BMW, and then it became Hexagon something. But there was one point, and it would have been probably 2006, 2007-ish, where they specialised in Z8s and the Alpina, what was the Alpina? Roadster. And they had literally a showroom full of them, and every week you'd go up and you'd see the prices drop and drop and drop. And then a few years later, everyone obviously realised, wait a second, this is a pretty cool car, and prices started rising, and they started fetching values that they should fetch, because they are. I drove one a couple of years ago. Tony's boss has got one, and it was the same spec actually, or same colour, and it was fantastic because there's a lot of E39 underpinnings, isn't there? The engine and stuff, and it's a lovely car. It's so well engineered. The interior is so unique, and we were just talking about it before we turned the cameras on, that it's one of those cars pre-nav that has an interior that that hasn't really dated. It's kind of retro, but it could be modern. People poke their head in and go, wait, was that built last year, or was that built 20 years ago or 25 years ago? And it's just cool. It's very, very cool.
No, it's aged nicely. I think it's definitely one for the collectors, and sort of, which is a shame because then they do sit in garages. But as a car that is a stamp of kind of BMW's history and marking that occasion and using great underbinnings, as you say, I think is a brilliant thing. We were approached by a collector he's bought 8 of them recently.
Wow.
And he's interested in buying this one and thinking, well, do you really need 8 of them? But I guess he's just trying to buy up the market.
And what kind of values are they reaching now?
That one is one previous owner from the States car with 7,000 miles, and we're asking 225 for that car.
Okay. Yeah.
So they were what, 70 or 80 new, were they?
I think this is a good question. I think they were over 100 new, but I can't remember.
I think around 110.
Wow, and that's money.
And then they went down to about 60 when I was, those years later, they were all 60, 65 for a few years.
That'd have been a good investment, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but then you think back then as well, not then, a few years later, same thing with like cars like the Carrera GT. I remember you'd find 10 of those on Auto Traders for 150 grand not so long ago. Yeah. Like I remember seeing them and going, well, they seem pretty affordable. At the time, I had about 10 quid in my bank account, but now it's like, if only, yeah.
So that kind of brings us on to the next thing to talk about with classics is the investment side of them. Because if I had a superpower, okay, I would love the superpower of knowing what cars, when they're like at rock bottom like that, are going to suddenly be silly money. Because if you had that superpower, you could make some money, couldn't you?
You could make some good money. I think it's a really interesting one. And I think there's a number of kind of topics that probably ought to be covered with the whole investment, and what really goes into investing in cars. Because there's a lot, under the scenes that needs to be considered with the financials. Because obviously, you can buy a car and you might sell it for double what you paid for it. But what's actually got into maintaining that car to get it to a point where you can achieve that. But I think also it is an interesting one because you can almost, I think, try and predict what cars could be valuable based on generational shifts and trends and patterns as to what cars were considered poster cars for, the sort of the teenagers and mid to late teens, I guess, of people who would, if they could have had anything when they were young, what would they have had? What they would have seen in showrooms or driving past on the street. That now they've reached that point where they're in their 30s, 40s. They've made a bit of money, maybe some blockchain money or whatever. They've got some cash and they're thinking, what can I go and spend with this? That's also maybe going to be a good investment. And they're now able to buy these cars. So stuff like the kind of the Diablos and the Countachs and stuff that were leery, amazing, iconic designs, and that people can now actually start to buy. And subsequently, the prices are going up.
Yeah. It's a difficult one, because I guess that links to the second thing is, why do you buy a classic car? So you could buy it as an investment, and there are many people that's what they do, right? And I guess you buy modern day cars, especially the low run cars, as an investment, or you buy them because you just always wanted one. You love them. They're that childhood dream. You get to a point, like you said, you've made some money, or you've paid your mortgage off, or whatever it is, and suddenly you think, do you know what? That car I've always hankered after. I'm going to buy one of those.
I think if you look at cars and try and consider them as sort of portfolios and managing your fund of your car collections, I just think it loses all of the fun and the point of what cars are all about. If I can make money on cars, of course you want to make money on cars. Everyone wants to. Yeah. And you can try and be as careful as you can. You can buy cars that are low production run cars that are the lowest mileage, the most original examples you can find. And you probably have a good chance of making good money on that when you do come to selling it. But also, for me, then you just don't want to drive those cars because they are so perfect, so low mileage, so original. And I think for me, personally, I would want to have a high mileage, leggy car that I can really enjoy, knowing that it's been maintained regularly because it's been used regularly. Yeah. And really just enjoy, because life is too short, and you never know when your clock's going to, go out. So you just want to be able to get in something and that's going to really make you feel alive. Because cars, however much you can make money on them, I just don't think that's the right approach. And whenever we talk to people and clients come to us saying, what could I buy if I had, if I gave you 100 grand, what would you buy for me that's going to make me money? Yes, we can give you ideas based on what the market tells us looks like it performs well, but we would always have a caveat to that, which is buy with your heart, not with your head. And because, if shit does hit the fan and something goes wrong with the car, which is, always the possibility. They're old things. They're not, they're not brand new Swiss watches. So there are always going to be things that go wrong with it. So yeah, it's a tricky one.
Yeah, because you have engines blow up, can't you, Pat? He's honest. Pat's got a lovely classic 911 that...
Oh, I thought you were referring to me.
So when he told me that the engine was being rebuilt, it wasn't because he chose to rebuild it.
Oh, it seized shortly after he bought it. Yeah. Because I guess, because you could think, the problem with very new modern cars, you buy them and they depreciate, like especially the expensive stuff, on the whole depreciates. You've got VAT to take off and, you could lose a whole bunch of value in the first couple of years. With an older car, whether it's modern, classic or classic, however we're going to define that, you think, well, they've had that depreciation. They're at a level where they're either going to, if you maintain them correctly, and we'll come to the cost of doing that in a moment, but they're either going to kind of maintain their value or over time maybe appreciate as they become rarer and rarer. But you've still got to maintain them, so they still need, and that I know for a lot of people, I've got quite a few people I know who have classics, and the thing they love most about it is, unlike a modern day car, they can lift the bonnet and they can do stuff. There's, it's not just a computer underneath that. If you haven't got the right software, you're buggered basically. You can get in there, you can tinker with things, you can, and that's part of the joy of owning it. I did a film with a Lotus Esprit Turbo the other week, and so many of the comments are, I love my Lotus because it breaks down and it gives me an excuse to fix it.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
now, unfortunately, I don't have the mechanical skills. No, but I know that's that's a lot of people's joy is that custodianship.
Yeah, I think if you're fortunate and you've got a garage and you've got some tools and you can tinker on your own cars at home, then there is nothing more enjoyable. I think when you know what you're doing and you feel like you can fully understand everything that car is about and what everything does. That's, I think, a part of the reason I actually wanted to get into doing an apprenticeship, to understand if you take an engine apart, what does it look like and how can you rebuild it and make sure it works again. So if you were, I don't know, driving to South France and you had a problem, you actually might know how to fix it.
Yes.
Because, we all know that old cars have their issues. And I think if you can at least have some idea how they work, then that's great. And as you say, if I broke down in a modern thing, I would not know where to start.
No. And you probably wouldn't be, even if you did know.
On speed dial. But
yeah. Exactly. They need to be plugged in, don't they? If you haven't got that software, like you said, then doesn't matter how good your mechanical knowledge is.
Yeah.
I just watched the new Grand Tour, the sand job where it was, and that drive around in the desert where you've got a DB9, whatever it is, that's probably quite a leggy car that's then turned into a dune racer, which definitely wasn't intended to be.
Yeah. And
all the electricals are just going to throw up a number of issues. Just sort of what are you? Why am I on a desert? Why is it so hot?
Yes.
Going on? And an old car wouldn't have those. It wouldn't have the brain to tell you, oh, don't do this, do this. Change gear, don't change gear. It would just be, what do you want me to do? I'll do what you ask of me.
Yeah. So true.
Yeah. No, it's an intriguing thing, isn't it? Because you think, maybe actually if I bought a classic, I'd actually then learn how. In my first car, I used to do bits of car maintenance. I'd take the points off and clean them and do the timing and do my own servicing and all that kind of
stuff. You still do things with your Boxster, like put stickers on the windscreen?
Put stickers on the windscreen, yeah. All right. God, that didn't take long to get in, did it? But I think I used to do quite a bit, and then it just, you get a car that's just got, an ECU and all those things, and suddenly you realise, actually, I'll just take it to the dealer. Yeah. And then it doesn't take very long to have cars like that, where you just forget the knowledge you had, and you're so intimidated by the car anyway, that you just send it straight to the dealer.
Yeah.
Even things like brake. So I could change wheels, I could change brake pads on most cars and things like that. But even on modern, so on a G Series M car, so like my M3, for instance, if you want to change the rear brake pads, you can't unless it's plugged into a computer. Because of the electronic handbrake, and that's probably the case with most cars, the electronic handbrakes these days, unless a lot of sports and supercars have got independent little calipers, haven't they, that you see. But on more regular cars, you've got to plug it in so that the electronic handbrake releases so that you can change the pads. So things like that, you can't even do it unless you've got the right software and the right computer to plug it in. So
they just don't want you to work on your own car, do they?
They don't. Yeah.
I had a Freelander that had a tail light bulb go when it was bulbs and not LEDs and stuff.
Yeah.
I thought I'd just go and buy another bulb, but to get the tail light unit off, you needed a special tool that was only main dealer supplied.
Right.
So you couldn't actually take the tail lamp off unless you took it to a main dealer to change a bulb.
So it's the side of the road, needs to change a bulb, and you can't.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's that thing with cars, isn't it? Which is that you want to get a classic car because you want to be able to get, it's something you can really drive and get that pure, unadulterated sort of driving pleasure from.
Yeah.
Which you might have to fix if it breaks down. But then you think, I could just have something new that's easy and comfortable and fast and reliable, and I haven't got to think about if it goes wrong. So you have that balance of, if you had all the money in the world, you might want to have a classic car and a modern car. But if you're just going to be spending your hard-earned cash on one car, what do you go for? Do you go for something that gives you all the pleasure of a stripped-out classic car, which is, everywhere? So many cars you can get that are pre kind of 1970, 1980 will be so much fun. You can go for an MG midget that's sort of, £5,000-10,000 and have the most fun you could probably ever have in a car that's so small, that's, value for money.
At about 30 miles an hour, but it makes you feel like you're doing 50 or 60.
So you're never breaking the speed limit, and you're always having fun. But then you think, well, do I really want to drive this car to work every day? Or do I really want to take it on a road trip to Monaco or whatever it is? So you then think, well, then you want to go for something more modern. And then you have those potential electrical gremlins of that kind of early modern era, modern classic kind of era.
I guess we are in the realms of you need to be lucky enough for most classic car owners for it to be a weekend car. You need somewhere to park it. So you either have a garage or you bring it somewhere like this and have it in storage. But then there's obviously the costs associated with that. But to run a classic every day as your daily, I think you need to be pretty hardcore.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah.
Don't you, Pat?
That's pledging on that.
The other thing about the older cars, and I guess you could argue this, but there's some beautiful design. Some of the, I know there's some pretty ugly ones as well, but you look back and the cars of the 60s and in particular the 70s just had some beautiful shapes and flowy curves, and cars nowadays they're almost like a kind of jelly mold cookie cutter, aren't they? They all kind of look the same.
Yeah. Especially EVs. And no, that's not me just hating on EVs.
I was going to come on to the whole EV thing. The
EVs.
best thing is they're not electric.
Yeah, no, but they are. And it's. I was thinking about this on the way down here because I remember talking to someone at Audi years ago when Geneva Motor Show 2019 it would have been. I think that was the last one I went to, and they had the concept of the e-tron GT. I think then. And I remember speaking to someone. They were like, the great thing about EVs is it really there's less limits as to how we can style things, and we can have and I saw that. I thought, wow, this is a good looking car, and the production ready one is a great looking car. But then that's about it. I mean, the Taycan Sport Turismo is a good looking car, but the rest are just a bit. The Mercs are horrific. And it's like, how can you? Yeah, they've almost gone. In my opinion, they've made some of these cars look uglier than the combustion engine cars that sort of. And that's not me being a hater. I don't know. Maybe it is.
No.
I agree.
All I'm going to say, because this goes out this Friday, I'm just doing my type yet. So tune into my channel on Monday.
Okay.
Because I went to Paris last week to see the new Renault 5
Yes.
EV.
Yeah.
And that is cool.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Because what they've basically done is they've just made the concept car.
Yep.
Amazing.
It's
I would definitely have one of those.
It's really, really cool.
Yeah, and that's what you need. We need something that's quirky and cool. I think that's why the Mini electric sort of, if I had to buy one, I lived in London, the range is really bad, the original one.
Yeah.
But that's what I liked about that is it was just kind of based on it looked like a normal Mini, but what they've done there, the retro classic or whatever, that's,
and it's quite interesting because is that link over, so they're all their inspiration comes from the classic Renault 5. Which is the same age as me, by the way. 1972 was the first Renault 5. And they've taken...
Wow, that's going back a long way.
Your mum still thinks I'm younger than you. But no, they've taken that classic inspiration and made it into a modern-day car with an electric drivetrain. I guess we could have a very brief conversation about you could always electrify your classic. That really upsets people.
Yeah, what's your take on that, Ben?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I think if you take a car that was never really designed to be a great, or was never considered to be a great driver's car, then maybe an EV swap isn't a bad idea. The only car I can think of we've got in the moment, which we've just sold, is a Jensen Interceptor, which was a big, comfortable cruiser, kind of Grand Tourer thing, which is a big, thirsty V8, not going to set the world alight performance-wise. But if that car was electric, you would have the reliability of sort of knowing you're going to get there in time and safely.
Yep.
But then also feeling like you're maybe doing good and driving something quite cool. But if you were to take like a 911, like a classic 911, which is really was designed to drive the way that car should drive, and then you try to take all the engine out and put a electric drivetrain in it just feels a shame. And so I think there's a balance between maybe some cars you should do an EV conversion on, and some cars you shouldn't.
Yeah. Interestingly, Moggy's done both of those. He's done a Jensen Interceptor and the 911. He does a swap-in 911 kit.
Yeah.
The one I always give, because people say, why would you do it? Carman gear. Okay. Yeah. Never has a car been designed that looks so fast and is so slow.
Yeah.
Like 35 horsepower, the original Carman gear. And the conversion we did on the first series of Vintage Voltage, I think the motor that went in there was like 120 horsepower. It kept the gearbox, so you still have 3 pedals and gears, but it goes every time, and it's they upgraded the suspension and the brakes, and it handled better, and it went faster, and it kind of makes sense. And one of the main drivers for a lot of people who do those swaps is, we just talked a minute ago about having a classic and running it every day, and how much of a pain that will be because they break down a lot. A lot of people get a classic, convert it to electric so that they can use it every day. We did a DeLorean. Now, again, there's a car, right?
I could see you in a DeLorean.
Right. I actually saw one on the road. I was filming with that Spider RS last week, and a DeLorean went past. I'm like, oh, cool car. They're cool to look at. Terrible cars to drive. Awful. And we converted that to electric, and the guy who owns that lives in Dublin and uses it to drive to work every day in his electric DeLorean.
That, for me, does feel like the perfect car to swap, because it was always designed to be very futuristic and cool. And making it EV just really fits that car.
But it is a subject that really, really winds people up. Anyway,
spend too long on it.
One of the things we've done for the second half of the pod, which I thought would be quite funny, is I've set a challenge to the three of us. Okay, so we've had to select 4 classic cars that we would choose. Okay, and I've said for the first one we're going to go under £25,000. So is there such as a thing as an affordable classic? And you might argue, well, even £25,000 is a lot of money, but you could have said £10,000, but really you're scraping the barrel of of eBay and Facebook Marketplace for that. So 25 grand, I think, was a reasonable budget. Then we've gone sub 50 grand, which is a lot more money, and then sub 100 grand. And then lottery win car.
How big's a lottery?
It can be literally anything. Yeah, so you've won Euro Millions, 150 million quid. I was listening to a podcast this morning about this guy was talking about giving money away, and he was talking about Jeff Bezos' wife.
Yeah, the divorce settlement.
The divorce settlement. I think she got something like 50 or 60 billion.
She's the richest woman in the world.
Yeah, and she's giving it all away.
Wow.
Apparently, she can't give it away fast enough because it grows in.
What about the drive? Is she going to give Drive Talk podcast?
That would be amazing. I need to contact her. So right, should we go for?
Yes, I love these. Well, firstly, this is the first time we've done it with a guest. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to Ben.
Well, Ben's the expert.
But Ben's the expert. But I just always look forward to yours, Chad. So it's just always like.
Should I go first then?
Yeah, absolutely. No. Let's
get the expert first. Yeah. Ben, go 25 grand. We're looking for you we're going to make loads of money from this because you're going to buy smart.
Yeah.
It's not going to break down.
And this is you said classic, but this is classic or modern classic, however you interpret that.
Right. Ready. Okay. Quick question first. Are we going for a daily driver, something you could use every day, so it's your only car, or do you have something that is your everyday car anyway, and this is just like you've got 25 grand, you've maybe inherited 25 grand, you think, what do I go and buy, knowing you've already got something that you can get?
I think either, really. Whatever moves you. My one that I've chosen, I could use it every day, but you probably wouldn't, because it would then. Right. For me, I think when you start using a car as a daily, it's when people go get a supercar. Could you daily a supercar? Well, yeah, you probably could, but the whole point is it's a special thing, right? And you wake up on a Sunday morning and you think, I'm going to go out for a drive today. I had a Caterham. I wouldn't have. Could I daily a Caterham? Maybe. But was it a special thing on a Sunday morning? You'd wake up and the sun would be shining. You go, I'm going to go out the Caterham today.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so what I've gone for with the £25,000 budget is the Lotus Elise.
Oh.
Now, I went for the S2. I was considering the S1 because I do think they're quite iconic, and actually value-wise, I think they're going to be very strong to sit on. But as a car that is again, pairing back to purely analog, what a car should be, and how obviously Lotus designed cars to be super lightweight and everything else. These cars are 700 kilos. They are not the most powerful things in the world, but at that point, you just want to have fun, and you can rev its nuts off and have a really good time. And so for living in the UK, where you have, if in the right place, it's got some lovely B roads and things to really enjoy, I think the Lotus Elise.
That is a good call. That is
a good
I
call.
wonder if you could you get, is it 111?
You get the 111S. You can
111S.
which is probably the one that I've been looking around, probably pushing it like maybe late 20s, but a bit of haggling, I reckon I can get
Yeah. So 25. If the wife asks you, it's 25, but in reality, it's about 30. Yeah.
Great looking cars. They look like they're fun, and they are. Although, I don't.
Would you fit in one?
Not really.
That wouldn't be a car for you, would it?
No.
I've been on the verge of buying a Lotus Elise a couple of times.
I've actually never driven one, so I've actually never sat in one either. And I am 6'2", so I'm hoping I would fit, but it might be a bit of a squeeze.
I remember being at the motor show the year they were launched, and just looking at them for hours and hours. Just a cool thing, the little S.
I actually saw there was a new Hagti video that went out recently, which was there's a company that take them and basically make them as good as they can be with the latest brakes and suspension and everything else. But then they're about 100 grand. So you think, well, but is this whole world of resto mods, which is probably a whole other conversation of taking a classic car and making it as good as it can be with the latest available equipment and carbon fiber and everything else.
Yeah.
But then for me, it's really only for the super wealthy that can actually go.
Yeah. Good shout. Well, go on then.
Well, me next. Okay, so this one is it's the newest one of the cars that I've chosen. It's 2006-7. So in my head, that is just modern classic. That's 20 odd, nearly 20 years. It's an Audi.
Oh.
RS4.
Oh.
B7.
Oh.
But this is where it gets interesting, because I'm a wagon man. I think we can all appreciate fast wagons, Avants, Tourings, whatever you want to call them. But I think because they made them in such small numbers, and at the time nobody really considered one because you'd buy the Avant, the B7 RS4 Saloon.
So that's the one that Jeremy Clarkson raced
exactly the red one,
the base jumpers, right?
And I went online, and you can get really nice ones, 25 grand.
Those engines are amazing,
aren't they? Yeah, that 4.2 naturally aspirated V8. But they in fact, there's one. If anyone's interested, there's one online for 70 grand, which has done 200 miles.
I actually saw that one because before we started filming this podcast, I was thinking, what would my sub 25 grand car be if it had to be my everyday car as well?
Yes.
And that's what I was going to pick. I was between the E46 M3 coupe manual or exactly as you say, the B7 Saloon.
So the only problem with that, though, you buy a classic that has such low miles.
Yes.
And then the second you put more miles on it, you destroy.
Forget the two. Yeah, the two. I mean, that's well out of budget. But there was some really around 20 to 20.
They had those really cool seats as well. The upgraded Recaros. Mate, they were awesome.
I mean, they must be worth 5 grand each, those seats today.
Yeah.
Didn't people used to break into them and steal the seats?
Yeah.
Pretty sure that was a huge thing. Insurance claims on those RS4s. It's like nicking the seats.
It's like headlights these days.
Yeah.
Getting them out the front of Tyco.
Yeah. But yeah, that's cool. So that's my. And I looked at it, I thought, if I had to spare 20-25 grand, I'm sure there is potential high running costs, but they look cool. And like I said, that for some reason the Saloon is really unique now because they made such low numbers. Or in the UK they didn't sell many because everyone loved them.
And it's a beefy thing. It's got big flary up.
Lovely. Yeah. So that's mine.
Impressive. Okay.
I'm glad that he approved.
Yeah. That's good. So I've gone. So I think the car I've chosen,
MG Electric.
Why am
Moped, that was only a year old.
I think the car I've chosen would probably be one of those never meet your heroes, absolutely shit to drive. But I've always wanted one.
Right.
Okay. Because my first car was a Mark 1 Ford Fiesta.
Okay.
And I always wanted a 1300 Super Sport Mark 1 Ford Fiesta.
Wow.
Not the XR2. The 1300. Would you like to see a picture? I've got a picture.
I can picture the XR2. My old man's friend used to have one. Oh, that is cool.
with tartan seats.
That is beautiful. That is a
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know what you mean. I know
Right.
what you mean.
That's a great looking
And
car.
that is 70, just under 18,000 quid.
So is that? I mean, there couldn't be many for sale though.
No, I don't think there'd be. I would have thought the what's that scrappage scheme probably killed most of them off. To be honest,
Either that or they rusted away into pieces.
they're rusted away. So I think it's one of those. One of the reasons you might go after the classic cars, we have mentioned it briefly, is that harking back to cars you couldn't afford back in the day.
Yep.
And I think that's, for me, definitely one for me. I've always just loved the look of them.
Yeah.
A Mark 1 XR2 would probably be a more easy car to find, a better car to drive.
Yep.
But there's something about the Super Sport with the decals on the side and the tartan seat. I just think they're cool.
I think that's awesome. Actually, and I think you're right. Like, nostalgia plays a huge part of it. Like, sometimes I look at old cars and I just think, my mum had that and I really want one because of the fact that my mum had one of those.
But you can, I had a look, I thought about things like Renault 5 GT turbos and that you can get, I mean, they're probably under 25 grand. They're not going to be the best car in the world, but cool.
Yeah. Very
Really, really cool.
Lancia Delta Integrale, those kind of like awesome shapes, like the fun, hot hatch.
Yeah.
You could pick them up.
Yeah.
nice.
Right, there you go.
Okay. Well,
Right.
yeah. That's
All right, see.
back. I'll let you have that one.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Now then, so over to Ben so this is now sub 50,000. By the way, if you're listening or watching, a couple of things. You make sure you subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, and make sure you give us a review and follow us on the audio podcast platform you're listening on.
Yep.
If you want to see the cars that we're talking about, make sure you tune into the YouTube video, because we're going to send some pictures for Pat and he can drop them in. He hates it when we make him do that.
Yeah. Extra work.
And put in the comments what your sub £25,000 car would be. So 50 grand now. Budget goes up.
Yeah, it's tricky. I've spent a long time thinking about this because
It's the best game ever.
there are so many options, and I know that I'm going to change my mind immediately after this podcast. But I just think I've had to try and be as pragmatic as I can based on what I would want the car to be and to feel like. And I think nostalgia does play a huge part in this one. So I was looking at the BMW M635 CSI. Now that was a manual car. The M was the manual, and they are, although I must admit, they are hard to find at 50,000, but they are, you can pick them up occasionally, but they are sort of usually low 50s or maybe up to 60 for a really good one. But yeah, so that probably was the one I was landing on the most if you couldn't get a G Series 911, but they're usually just 60 plus.
Okay.
So here's just a question for you, just about where you would buy a car like that. So the obvious thing would be to talk about an auction, go into an auction. Okay. Now auctions terrify me because I'd need to take someone with me that either knew that car I was going for or was a mechanic or something, so that when I used to work, I worked with Bonhams a couple of years ago, and you could see people on preview day walking around with a mechanic, or they'd know what they were doing, and they were looking at the nth degree of detail. And that would terrify me, buying from an auction, just that because knowing my luck, I'd end up getting a real dog, basically.
And you also need that person to control you when you're bidding.
Yeah,
It's like, no,
exactly.
Ped.
Yeah, stop.
It's not.
Yeah, one more bit.
Yeah, it's difficult, and working in the auction industry, like I know all too well kind of what it's like and how it can be for buyers, and it is intimidating. If you don't know what you're looking at and you don't know what to look for, but you just know you've always wanted that car, it is terrifying. So your options are, there are so many online auction platforms now that you can go to find these cars, and they will show you a certain amount of information, but you'll never really know what that car will be like. So you are kind of having to make a bit of a gamble, or you're finding specialists. And if you go to kind of independent brokers and dealers who are, they're much more incentivized to want to make sure that you are happy with the car you're buying and that they've done all their checks first, because their reputation is on the line at the end of the day. Whereas the auction companies very much hide under legal paperwork and say, well, look, you bought it sight unseen, you've done your research, you bid on it, therefore it's yours. So whereas I think, you probably want to either, if you can, just go and see it, bring someone you know, take a specialist along, whatever you can. But on the flip side, you can get great deals at auction if you just put a bid in.
50 grand then, Joe. Come on.
Well, I was really worried then because I think we've got very similar
spirit
tastes.
over there. Ben likes his BMWs as well, by the sounds of it.
So amazingly, and this is the last one, my second car is also an Audi.
Okay.
And this is not to please Lou. My other half works for Audi UK, so it's an Audi Quattro.
Oh.
Something like a 20 valve 1990 UR Quattro.
Nice.
I've always loved them. It was a bit of a pin-up car when I was younger, and I got to spend a bit of time in one last year.
You drove that one
At Camilla's wedding, yeah.
Camilla's wedding.
Yeah, and
Because that was a 20 valve. Because I've had the
10 valve.
10 valve one, which just, what a remarkable car.
Yeah,
It's a fast car today. And I drove around it thinking, Jesus, this car came out in 1981.
yeah, the 10 valve. Yeah, they really are old, aren't they?
Yeah.
But I just, there's massive price differences online for tidy ones and dogs, but I just love them. I just think they're cool. And I found one last night for just under 50 grand, which looked really nice, white, similar spec to the one the one that Audi UK owned.
I thought there'd be more than that, actually. That's
Well, I think if this one had a few miles on it, but I think once you get lower mile ones, they creep up very quickly, like anything.
cool car.
But yeah, very cool.
And that is a car you could use every day.
You could use every day. In fact, so my good friend Joel, who lives out in Sydney, shout out Joel if you're listening. He's a Qantas pilot, and he's always had very interesting cars. Proper petrol head. I mean, like really like us. And he dailies a red UR Quattro. To the point that he drive it to work, park it in the car park, jump in his plane, and he picked me up when I went out there recently, end of last year. He came to one of my meets I had in Sydney, and we went out afterwards, and oh man, it was so cool. I mean, it was just
Proper fire up the Quattro Gene Hunt type guy.
absolutely. And he's so I'm not going to blow too much smoke, but he's just cool, Joel. Like, I think the fact that I know he's like a
He's a pilot
787 pilot and stuff. And he's just cool anyway. And it's like, mate, you fly planes and you drive a UR Quattro.
Legend.
Legend. That's a legend status.
Yeah. I like the guy already. Never met him.
Yeah, no. So yeah, that's my one. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, what about you?
So I've gone, not left field particularly, but another car that I have always wanted, but I found a really cool one that is track prepared.
Oh.
So this is now Track Day classic car toy. Okay.
You buy my M2 off me?
No. This one's engine works and everything.
Oh, picture.
I've got a picture. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
A Swift Tune
Yeah.
classic Mini Cooper S, and I was gobsmacked that this is 40 grand.
wow.
A
that.
1963 Morris Mini Cooper S, a full FIA race car by Swift Tune for
Straight
40
cut
grand.
box. I can imagine that's gonna be a lot of fun.
Can you imagine that? I was gobsmacked because I thought that would be like
100.
Yeah, exactly. And having been round Goodwood in a Swift Tune Mini with Nick Swift driving, awesome things.
Wow.
Awesome.
So what's that, like 100 odd horsepower or something?
Yeah, probably.
But weighs
Like
600.
about the same as one of your shoes. Yeah. But can
Wow.
you imagine that? How cool would that be? You wake up in the morning, you go, I don't know whether, I haven't checked because I quickly looked this morning, whether it's road legal or not, but I can't imagine it would
Why not?
be difficult to make it road legal.
No one would catch you, so it doesn't matter.
Isn't cool. It's that age where it's sort of no one really cares. It's so old that no one's gonna.
But I was surprised because I thought that the Cooper S would have to be my sub 100 grand car because I thought they'd be quite strong values. And I
They
think
made so many of them.
a nice road car one, but that's probably, I don't know, the heritage or the kind of provenance of the car that it was before it was turned into a Swift Tune Mini.
Yeah.
But, very cool.
I mean, the engine alone in that's probably worth 20 grand.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
No,
That's
brilliant thing.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Good
And then
choice.
you could probably, that's the kind of car you could race at Goodwood
Yeah.
and stuff
Yeah.
because it's F1.
It's very U-Ped,
Yeah.
mini thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got to keep my mini fans happy.
Yeah. That's awesome. I like that. Yeah.
Proper analog driving experience.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. See, that's two choices. This has never happened. Joe quite likes my two choices. So now
When's it going to go downhill?
I've got a strong game today. I don't think it's going to go downhill. I'm quite proud of my choices this morning. So now, doubling the budget, we've now got £100,000, which in anyone's money is a lot.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. And you might be thinking, I'd be sat there going, well, I'd actually rather pay 100 grand off my mortgage first or do something. But if you had £100,000, classic car, Ben.
Well, yeah, again, I went modern classic, and I think this is probably beginning to stretch the realms of what is considered a modern classic. But this is my interpretation of a modern classic because I think it's only fair. And it happens to be in the Ramir.
Oh.
which is the Ferrari 612 that we have.
Oh, the Scaglietti.
Now that is a 2010 car. The 612 did originally come out in 2004, but that is a car that I've spent a lot of time in recently, driving it to London and back, and really getting a bit of proper seat time in it. And it is so comfortable and usable and special, but it's also quite discreet. And so for me, I'm thinking, you get £100,000. What are you going to buy that you're going to feel really special in, that's going to make you feel alive when you want to drive it? And that's not a track racer, so it's never going to be quite the same. But that engine is an incredible engine, and you can, 4 up in it. You can get the kids in the back, and I just think it's something.
I'm gobsmacked. That's
ticks a lot of boxes. It's £99,000, so
wow.
It's just under.
And the spec on that one, as you say, it's discreet. If it was red, with crema or something, okay, it'd be a bit more Ferrari. But
that's got carbon ceramics.
It has indeed, yes.
Wow.
So that was the 1-to-1, which was the highest option package at the time. So now they call it the tailor-made program.
Wow.
So when you go to Ferrari and say this is exactly what they want, that's what they that's what they called it back in the late teens.
I've always liked, and I know they have been a little bit. They've grown into themselves styling wise. Because when they first came out, I was like, oh. Then in my head at least, they became a little bit odd looking. But now when you look at one. And also, again, going back to values of them, they're starting to rise again because people are like, actually, that's a really nice car.
Yeah.
And I remember the original Top Gear when Clarkson drove one. I think it was down to South France or something. He had an issue. I remember it because he had an issue. There was a wiper problem, but like the one of the wiper blades had come undone. It wasn't even a Ferrari issue. It was just a wiper blade. And there was a whistling noise, and it was really winding him up. But then he fixed it because it was just a... But I remember that video, and I remember seeing that car and just thinking that would be cool, driving that to the south of France or wherever he was going. I thought, what a cool long-distance cruiser.
So my cool story about that is my mate Richard, who was exec producer on Vintage Voltage, was working on Top Gear for that.
No way.
And they drove down to the south of France with Jeremy Clarkson. Then he got on a plane and buggered off home.
Yeah.
And Richard and the film crew then drove back and did all the in-cars and the ups and buys and stuff.
Wow.
So when you watch that video and you see Clarkson's hands on the steering wheel, that's my mate Richard.
No way.
It's not Jeremy Clarkson. Yeah. So they always used to do the races in real time, but then they'd spend another couple of days doing all the big ups and buys and the sexy shots.
Maybe trickery.
Yeah, very cool.
That's my choice, which is... I mean, some people might not say it's a modern classic, but I think it's that point where Ferraris are still quite classic.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I'm surprised it's taken him 3 cars to talk about one that's actually for sale in here.
Exactly. I didn't want to just take over the podcast.
No, that's fine. We'll put a link in the description below. And amazing. Go on then, Joe. $100,000.
Again, I was really worried that Ben was going to bring this one up. So it has to be a BMW.
All right.
And it's going to be an E46 M3 CSL.
Oh,
there you could get a pretty nice one for 90, 100 grand. It's a car that I have always loved. And 2003-4, I think that was when they sort of brought them out. So again, borderline.
you had that one from the Heritage collection.
Yeah. Took the BMW UK car. Spent only a day with it actually. And Martin said because it was the weather wasn't great, and I'm glad I only took it for that day. But what a day that was! I'll never forget that. It was just such a, and yes, it's maybe not plagued, but it's got the SMG box and stuff. But actually, I know you can convert them to manual cars like a lot of people do, and I think if I own one, I'd probably ultimately do that. But getting in that car, it's 20 years old now. Is the SMG box that bad? It's not brilliant, but you kind of learn to work with it, and you're not expecting lightning gear changes and stuff. And when you put that aside, the rest of the package is just, I mean, that intake, the sound, just everything about it is just love that car. So yeah, I think that would definitely be it. As best as I could get for 100 grand, and you'd probably get a reasonably tidy one for that sort of money.
Nice.
So the experience of driving that car versus a more standard sort of, E46 M3, is it night and day?
I mean, I didn't drive them back to back, but yes, in some ways, like just things like walking up to it, there's a few little visual changes, like the bumper and the boot lid with the what would you call it? Not ducktail. Yeah. Just those sort of things, and then you get inside, and the interior is more stripped out, special seats and stuff. center console, just a few little changes in there. The wheels different, but then you do notice and you can get that air inbox for your normal E46 M3, but just things like that, the extra, the sound, the pickup, and you do feel, again, I hadn't driven one back to back, but it felt very lightweight. It felt very stripped out. It felt more like a racing car for the road, but without all the annoyances of a racing car,
like squeaky brakes and stuff.
Yeah, it was still clearly engineered by BMW M as a road car, but it just felt a bit race car as well. So I think very much like, I have to give them a lot of credit, actually. I think a lot of modern M cars, when they put the CS or the CSL label on it, even with modern stuff, which we all know is very restricted, they still manage to make them different. Like the M3 CS, the current one, it's so different to the regular M3, but yet the ingredients are pretty much the same, and you think, how have they done that? So it's just those small changes, when you add them up, it's just special. And but that particular car is a very nice, tidy BMW UK car. I'm sure some of the leggier ones aren't quite as nice, but yeah, it's just cool. I love it. I think it's worth every penny as well. I think as a non-expert, as a non-Ben, I know they've slowly crept up, but I can see them being continuing tidy ones to continue to climb, because they're just a bit iconic, and it's still one of the prettiest. Okay, we can go back, a couple of generations to the CSO over there, 3 litre, but I think as a modern M car, it's this E46 is one of the prettiest cars out there still.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Good choice. Good choice.
Yes. Now over to you, Fred. Come on, don't let us down, mate.
Yeah.
So if I had 100 grand, I'd go and see a mate of mine called Ellis and his mate Keith, who run Automotive, and they are the UK's #1 Lancia Delta Integrale specialist.
Okay.
And I'd buy a Lancia Delta Integrale Evo 2.
Oh.
And you can, I mean, they've got a couple on their website for sale at the moment for about 95.
Yep.
Really lovely, dark kind of navy blue with tan interior. Really lovely. I've got a picture of it. I'll show you later.
Yeah.
Or they've got a nut and bolt restoration one that's about 125. So okay. I mean, they're strong money now, but having driven, they are just. I still think, for me, of my childhood, and it's that combination. I'd be very tempted actually to give him 100 grand again to build me a rally car, because he does that as well.
Yep. A
full Martini liveried rally car. But I just think they're the coolest car from that.
I mean, I think for me that is poster car status.
Yeah, yeah.
That is.
The reason I chose it was, for me, that encompasses everything that, for me, certainly a modern classic is about. It's a car you've lusted after when you were younger. I just think they look amazing. I mean, the only downside of them is their left-hand drive, but we jump in and out of left and right-hand drive cars all the time. It doesn't really make any difference.
Almost makes it a bit more special in many ways.
When you get your head around it really, really quickly. The first time I drove a left-hand drive car, I thought, oh my God, I'm going to crash this. And then it doesn't make any difference. But they're so cool. And now you can tune them now. Most of them have got a tune up to about 300 horsepower. So they're a bit quicker than they were when they first came out. And they've got a really great noise, the whole turbo flutter dump valve thing going, and they're just very cool cars.
That is cool. Did we see one at Podium Place?
That was Ellis's old car. Yeah. So they'll take an Integrale shell and basically make an FIA spec race, a rally car out of it.
Yeah,
for about 100.
That's gonna make you feel special.
Yeah, very
definitely.
Cool. So
I think we can all agree that's it. And who are those? I know this is Laurie winning, so I hope I haven't ruined it. But who are the company that did the Integrale? They did like a carbon retro.
Automobile Amos?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wasn't that like £2 million or something?
I don't even know. Actually, I should probably know what the prices are, but they are insane.
Yeah.
And waiting list is quite nuts for this.
It's a bit like that ProDrive, the P1. They did the Subaru Impreza. That's a nuts thing as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I just Integrale.
Nice. Yeah.
There you go.
Here, good try.
Fairly
right. Hey, look at this. He likes all three of them. This is wicked. Okay, so now we've done the Euro Millions, okay, and we've won umpteen millions of pounds. So price is not a budget, not a worry at all.
Yep.
Ultimate dream, classic car, and why, Ben?
This was the easiest one for me by a long way.
I thought it might be.
And
Where is it? Is it parked anywhere in here?
I wish. I wish. It's a car that when I first got up and close to one, it was actually in Retromobile at the Classic Car Show in Paris quite a few years ago now. The McLaren F1.
Oh,
Yeah.
Now, I have always admired them and loved them, but when I physically got up and close to one, there was something happened to me that I've never experienced before with any other car. I just,
you got an erection.
well, I've experienced that before. But not many cars make you feel that special. There was something about it, an aura that car had that just had a control over me that I had to have one.
Yeah.
So I have, definitely got high ambitions. But one day I will own one of those cars.
Wow.
And so work hard. But the only problem is though, I don't think, even if I did have all the money in the world, I don't think anyone would actually want to sell me one, because I just think there's so few of them that if you had the money, if you had one anyway, why would you want to sell it? So it's that kind of ridiculous level of wealth where you just don't need the money. So why would you sell it?
Yeah. What are they? There is a couple, isn't there? I was listening to a podcast the other day that there's a couple for sale at the moment.
15 to 20 million, maybe.
More.
A road going
25, probably.
Really?
I think.
Because what did
even
Rowan Atkinson's
one?
Yeah,
I think
he sold that for like.
I think it was 18.
18.
A while ago.
And that had been rebuilt twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think they're probably for nice. There's actually one in particular, is chassis number 22, which is the one I've had my eye on for a while, which is which was silver, I think, but it's now a lovely green color with like a tan interior, and it's in a private collection in Florida. But yeah, it gets the gist going.
Wow.
But yeah, that's probably going to be 30 million quid.
And then the GTRs and they get silly money then.
Yeah.
Very
That's
cool.
that's my choice.
Yeah, good choice. Good choice.
Awesome. Well, mine is, firstly, it's actually a classic. Secondly, you could buy quite a few of them for the price of Ben's choice. It's I think they're 1972 only. 2.7 RS 911.
Nice.
Yep.
I love them. I just love how beautiful they are, how pretty they are.
I know someone who got two of those.
Do you?
Yeah.
Well,
Maybe
Would you have
spare
the
one?
touring or the lightweight?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I'd have to go and test drive it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll have two if Ben's got spending 25 penny rent. But I don't know. What would you have?
Well, I drove a touring.
Yeah.
And that was a very special class drive. But I think the lightweight would probably just be even more special. So I think if you're going to do it, just go really special.
Go with the lightweight.
Nice.
I'd go with the lightweight.
That's a good shout.
Yeah, pretty car. And and being an 11, as we all have these problems, we're all quite tall, and a lot of real classics, unfortunately, we're unable to drive, or we're very compromised.
Yeah.
But I find with most 911s, even the classics, they cater for most shapes and sizes. So over to you, Fed.
Well, Ben's already said mine.
Oh, no,
It
really?
would be a McLaren. Well, so here's the thing. So it'll be definitely McLaren F1.
Okay.
I'm the same as you. I just think they're a remarkable car. I think arguably the best car ever made.
Yeah.
Especially if you look back. I mean, it's an amazing car now, but you look back to when it actually was made and the engineering in it. It was a phenomenal car. My only challenge with it as a car to own is because there's so few of them. I think most of them now, they just get stuck in a collection somewhere. And Rowan Atkinson, when he had it, he used to drive it to. He dailied it. He dailied an F1. He used to drop his kids off to school. I remember reading a story when they were first out, only about 2 or 3 years after they'd first come out. There was one went to McLaren for a service, and they made a big thing because they had the onboard modem, and bear in mind this is early noughties, isn't it? So, and they plugged it into the computers, and this car was exceeding 200 miles an hour every day. Right? And it was owned by a German lawyer, and he bought it because it saved him 40 minutes to get to work and back every day. Because he made the money up on the rates he could charge his clients just because he drove 200 miles. What a geezer! So, but my challenge with it is it's such an amazing car. Even with untold wealth, it would still be a car I think would be challenging to drive a lot. And they're one of those time-bounded cars as well that even if they stand still, they cost you a fortune. There's a brilliant video on the internet that describes how much they cost.
Yeah.
You have to change the fuel tank every 3 years.
That's right.
And those types of things. So I kind of went a bit curveball
Okay.
with my unlimited funds.
That's unlike you.
Yeah. So I thought, right, unlimited funds, but I'm not going to be ridiculous. I'm going to buy a car that I would buy and just drive the wheels off it, but I couldn't afford unless I won the lottery. And it's very similar to yours, Joe.
Oh.
So so even with something like a 2.7 RS, they're so rare and so on. So I would take £250,000 and I'd go to Rennsport and I'd buy a Rennsport.
Yeah.
And I just think, I mean, to be fair, I was at Topaz yesterday and there was a Tuthill Porsche in there. It's exactly the same kind of thing. So Tuthill, Rennsport, Singer, not the ridiculous Singer, but one of those 911
What's so far?
Oh,
That
mate.
911K, the Tuthill one.
Oh, the
11,000 up. Yeah.
But
video.
that kind for me, I think you could. I'd never be able to afford it unless I won the lottery. But I think for £250,000, you could buy it. You could take it on drive tours. You could drive the wheels off it, and I think it would give you all of those.
Yeah.
All those things you want from a classic car, complete raw driver's car, no safety aids, nothing, no ABS, no traction control, just you, the car.
Yeah.
And I just think that'd be wicked.
That's a great shout.
Nice.
So you'd go Rennsport over like a Singer or something?
To be honest, my next door neighbour's got one of the very early Rennsport cars, and I've driven that, and it was just a magical thing. I don't know what I'm not knowledgeable enough to know if I had that kind of money where that money would be best spent, if that makes sense. I went on to Tuthill. I mean, I think if you're going to go racing, Tuthill's probably the place to go because they do the race prepared stuff. I just found, I've got a picture actually. £250,000 a pairs.
Is this your new wallpaper? So you're working hard for it.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good colour.
I mean that they've got a couple.
Oh, 250. Okay, yeah.
So that's an X demonstrator, and it's just got the engine bay. I mean, where's the engine bay? The engine bay is ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, dare I say it? That's good. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good money, right?
I think it. Yeah, I think that is.
I've raised my game.
Yeah, you have. Yeah, yeah.
What a great
It's
game.
annoying. We need the conflict in the comments.
The problem, like, there are so many cars that you could choose from. And then whenever I say one, I'm like, oh, I wish I picked that. Because there are so many options you could have.
There are.
And I think, also, we're not in a position to have experienced all these cars. So, like, you can only know what you really know and what you've experienced. So,
I mean, F40 was on the list for sure. Lamborghini Miura on the list for sure. But you do have to kind of draw a line somewhere.
Yeah.
I think an F1 or an F4. And then I'm still waiting in our line of work. Maybe we might get to drive one of them. I've been in a McLaren F1 GTR as a passenger with Derek Bell driving. That was quite a special day going around Silverstone. But to get to drive, can you imagine getting to drive something like an F40 or a?
Yeah.
What's the most special car you've driven?
M2 competition.
Yeah.
By Swift Performance.
Yeah. Me, my Roadster.
Yeah. I don't know. It would have to be again for me something like a 911 GT3 Touring. So for me, that's the most special. Maybe not the most valuable, but yeah.
How about you?
Most special car driven.
Something really awesome, probably.
I've driven the 250 TDF Tour de France, which is a multi-million-pound thing. But when I say driven, again, when I was working for Coy's, the auctioneers, and we would get to drive a lot of these cars. So you would hop in all these cars to move them around the auction lots and wherever it was. So it wasn't really pushing it to the extent that you would if you were doing Tour Auto or something back in the day. But there was that and the Carrera GT. But the Carrera GT was something that I was so petrified to actually get in
and not smash the clutch up.
Exactly. That I think I had no enjoyment of it. And in fact, all my colleagues around me were saying, Ben, you do it because we don't want to.
Right.
I was kind of pressured into it.
You have to just.
It's on or off. I think it's just.
You just lift the clutch, but you don't put any throttle on. Is that right? To pull away.
Exactly. You don't need to.
Otherwise, you smash the clutch up.
So
it's like £1 million or something.
Yeah, you just don't want to get that wrong. So I just was terrified.
Wow.
But yeah. It's tricky. I've definitely experienced some fun cars. And, it's just tricky to know what you would actually put your own money into if you had it.
I drove a priceless Alfa Romeo at Hill of Goodwood Festival Speed.
Did you?
Yes. But it wasn't. It was a 1900 Sport Spider from like 1950s or something. Out of the Alfa Museum. Only one in the world. Yeah. It wasn't that fast, but God, it was cool.
Yeah.
Really cool.
I think I've changed my mind for one of my cars now.
Oh no.
So easy. But anyway,
Should we
stuck
continue
now.
and change our minds over a coffee?
Again. Yeah.
But mate, I'm going to draw the podcast. Look, we are an hour in. Look, we
Yeah,
could
just
literally-
over.
We could literally talk
Flies.
cars forever. But Ben, thank you so much for the invite to come here. It's been an amazing venue, and we'd like to come back and
Yeah, it's been awesome meeting you as well.
yeah.
very
I'm
welcome.
I'm sure it's not the end of an association with you. We'll
Definitely not.
definitely do some more stuff together,
Very welcome.
mate. It's good to see you back on form.
Yes.
And thank you for tuning in. Big thanks to our headline sponsor, Michelin, again. Yeah, we're all properly branded up. Look, I know. Yeah, they sent me a big box since I've got the ambassador thing. They sent me a big box of stuff.
Yeah.
So Michelin. Tracy was like, right. So which of your hoodies and which of your t-shirts are going in the bin because you've got all these new things coming as well.
It's always the way, isn't it? One in, one out. I know.
Yeah.
Why can't you just build a collection?
I know. But guys, I hope you enjoyed that. Don't forget to make sure you subscribe and give us a comment and feedback and all that kind of stuff. But we'll see you on the next episode.
Yeah. And check out Car Vault in the description below.
Definitely.
Give them a follow on Instagram.
Yes.
Cheers.
See you next
Cheers.
time.